the way that TiVo is taking advantage of the TV canvas, I think is going back to our DNA and our history of changing the way people watch TV. And that evolution of how we think about TV is something we've always thought about. And now we think about it as the entryway into a viewer's gateway into their entertainment world, sports, live entertainment, whatever it may be that they're looking for.
So when, we can almost say that there's a sense of traditional CTV video ads, but there's constant evolution in the space. Where do you see the next wave of opportunities for CTV?
I mean, the next wave for CTV opportunities is always going to be a situation where who's got the assets that are unique and they can take advantage. So it's always going to be some kind of unduplicated reach, premium inventory that's going to be safe environments, and then deterministic or some kind of data that says, what do we know about that consumer to give them relevant ads?
So do you see things like interactive formats? Is it sponsorships, shoppable content? Which of those do you think are likely to kind of be part of this next wave?
I wouldn't say one is more important than the others. What I can say though is what TiVo's really focused on is because we control the operating system, that gateway to that community, is we really believe in what we call the homepage hero. It starts off as 60% of the ad screen. As users start to interact with it more, it goes to 90%. So what we're really excited about that is it's about 15 to 30 seconds of dwell time. And consumers are understanding that it is advertisement, it does say sponsored, but they're not treating it that way. And because they're actually interacting with these units, we have a 98% video completion rate. And we actually have, when it comes to more info, 2 to 3% actually clicking on that. And that makes a ton of sense for tune-in advertisers who are trying to promote new shows and they're saying, hey, Mr. Consumer or Mr. Family, you're trying to figure out what you're doing, and these are new shows you can absolutely show to the family or for your husband and wife that they can watch together.
So with all the access that TiVo has to those completion rates, those engagement rates, how are you helping advertisers maybe rethink the way they target and understand those viewers?
Yeah, that's a great question of how they target and view those viewers. A lot of times it's going to be this is what the advertiser believes that they're looking for, and we can segment that based upon our TV deterministic data. But what they actually can't measure is those things like click-through rate, exposure rate. They're tracking pixels and whatever they decide to give us, they can actually get that data. What they can't track though is what actually leads to different behaviors on our operating system. And so those are thinking about like what is that for 100% incremental reach? What are they doing on top of that in terms of actually tuning in? We can A/B test in terms of app downloads versus exposed versus unexposed. And those are always going to be very important because only we can see what happens within our system beyond what the advertiser's top line metrics are.
So it seems self-evident to me, at least, that the way entertainment brands can understand the way TV advertising works is a natural. What about non-endemic brands, those that are outside the entertainment spectrum? How are they starting to use the TV screen to reach audiences?
Non-endemic brands are definitely experimenting with that. I think there's two parts to it. One is a company like TiVo or others, they have to believe that there's some kind of value. So we believe in the North Star, just like we've always talked about for TiVo being enriching the TV experience, we think the same thing. So the North Star is always our customer, our families who are actually tuning into our TiVo products. And so that's the most important thing. And if we're going to have that relationship with the advertiser, it has to make sense that they're going to do something that's consistent with that viewing experience. So outside of media entertainment, which is the most obvious, endemic, we think that things like travel or automotive or luxury goods are complementary to that.
So Craig, I don't know if this question is a crystal ball question or a wish list question, but when you're looking ahead, looking to past the holidays to 2026, what things, what innovations, what advances do you see shaping the future of CTV?
The future of CTV is always going to be the big buzzword of AI. And as I sit around Beat TV today and I see that, I think we saw a presentation that says, I don't know, right? And that's the only answer that you can get. But I do think about what marketing is always about, which is we think about audience statements or audience segments as something that we define as human beings. But in reality, when you are watching TV or I'm watching TV, there's the things that we already know and we've deterministically done, but AI can actually start not pigeonholing us to those type of audience segments. So what's going to happen over time is they're going to create audience segments on their own that are going to interact with brands, most likely. So I think that's the first thing that's going to happen. I think the second part we've talked about is interesting, but not as interesting as the first, which is how do you present creative that's going to be more relevant to those audiences. I think that's kind of the known and how you actually fill in the blanks of creative or personalization. And so that will continue to flourish, but I'm really more excited about the first part of how do we actually think about custom segments that are really on the fly for personalization for every single user. And the second piece is like, how do we give those real metrics back to customers instead of waiting post-campaign, doing all the analysis, coming with some statistical inference. AI can actually think about that more in real time and make adjustments mid-campaign.